4, 3.
We're talking about foolproofing, and I have to insist foolproofing your own lessons because you can't foolproof lessons for other people because they might. I hear you. Great, that's what I need. Thank you very much. I came up with this idea. I was working with okay. So here are some ways to foolproof your lesson. Plan what your students will be able to do at the end of the lesson that they couldn't do before. I can't believe how rarely we do this. We put together what we think is the content of the lesson, but we should be asking ourselves every time, what is it that you want your students to be able to do at the end of the lesson that they couldn't do before? Use humor. Where's your pencil, Scott? I ain't got none. How many times have I told you not to say that? Now listen, I do not have a pencil. You do not have a pencil. They do not have a pencil. Do you understand? Not really. What happened to all the pencils? Get a second pair of eyes on your lesson and pilot whenever possible. Even if you've got to grab a grad student or your spouse or somebody, they get a new perspective on what you're doing. Some of the things that seem so obvious in your head may not seem obvious to anybody else on the planet. So it's always good to have a second pair of eyes. It will make your lesson work a lot better. Use humor. Fred, your ideas are like diamonds. You mean they're so valuable? No, I mean they're so rare. I worked on the timings on this quite a bit, but I still don't think I have them entirely right. And you probably may be walking out of here by the time you see the rest of the humor. It's always about the students, never about you. If we focus always on our students and what they'll get out of the session and how they'll probably react, it's amazing how much teacher-centered learning goes on. If we, but actually we take better care of ourselves if we focus on what will make the students engaged and happy. Use humor. Define procrastination. Can I get back to you on that tomorrow? Make the trains run on time. This is things like how do you sagely use the first language, putting up agendas before you start the lesson, doing comprehension checks to make sure that everybody understands. The idea that you're not wasting the students' time, that what you're doing there is going to benefit them, they'll follow you wherever you go. And of course, use humor. Teacher, use defeat, defense, and detail in a sentence. The rabbit cut across the field and defeat went over defense before the tail. You'll be ready to leave when I'm done. Less is usually more. If you're doing it, they're not. Cut teacher talk by 50%. And I really tried hard to practice what I was preaching when I put this session together, and I cut about half of the suggestions I had out. Now that meant I had to do a lot more using humor. Teacher, spell rain. Student, R-A-N-E. That's the worst spell of rain we've had here in a long time. They're turning on me. Deliver more practice, less information, increase practice time by 50%. A couple of years back, I took a Portuguese class as much to find out what it was like to be a true beginner again, and I would get so frustrated. We'd run through an exercise once and poof, we're on to something else. I would have been happy practicing that exercise for half an hour, I think. Use humor. You missed school yesterday, didn't you? Wait for it. Not very much. I've had a number of students like that. Know thy students. For example, you can hand out a survey in class, I like to. Each student learns in different ways, different things in different ways. And getting to know our students, we start to respond to that almost automatically. We don't have to make such conscious decisions to differentiate learning. We could try using humor. I don't think I deserved a 0 on this test. I agree, but that's the lowest mark I could give you. And I've had a few tests like that, particularly in that Portuguese class I was telling you about. Oh. Assess gently, but often. You know, pop quizzes are terrible because you don't know when they're coming, but if students know that there's going to be a low-stake quiz every week, say on every Friday, they're not afraid of it. And it's a good way to review. It's a good way to help students know what they know and they don't know. So assess gently, but often. Use humor. How can you make so many mistakes in just one day? I get up early. And I got up quite early this morning, but happily we're almost done. Retrace your steps periodically. This is something that we often don't do, is that we don't stop and go back every 2 or 3 lessons and start making the connections. Now, sometimes there's not much you can do about that because your curriculum is pushing you, got to do a chapter, got to do a chapter, got to do a chapter. But still, if you don't go back and retrace your steps and see how things come together, you're missing an opportunity. And of course, you can use humor. How often do English teachers talk about grammar? You're going to love this one. Now and then. Weave conceptual baskets. Okay. What is the classic? Kid comes home from school and the parents say, "What'd you learn today?" Kid says, that's why debriefing is so important. We have to stop at the end and create a conceptual basket to take out of the classroom. And thank you very much.